All right, everyone, here we are getting into the last match of the day here in Group B. We have Smileguy versus Jinbae. Smileguy running an identical lineup to the one that we just saw out of Surrender with the Freljord elusives, the Demacia mist rates, and of course the Piltover Zon Noxus Teemo aggro. Meanwhile, on the side of Jinbae, going to be starting us off here with a Piltover and Zon Noxus Heimerdinger Ezreal deck. The only units coming out of this is going to be the Arachnid Sentry and the Chumpwump, and then a full slew of control spells such as Blade's Edge, Calling Strike, and Noxian Guillotine. Calling Strike and Noxian Guillotine, of course, being two of the premier removal spells in the 3-drop slot. Going to make very good use of that is the Heimerdinger to create some elusive turrets, and Smileguy going to get us started off aggressive here with a Navori Blade Scout. Not having the attack token though, but with no 1-drop coming down out of Jinbae, we'll just push 2 damage anyway. A Thermogenic Beam, a consideration here. A whole slew of removal spells in his hand otherwise. Thinking very hard about using this Thermogenic Beam. Will at least tick up the Ezreal, as this is not just a Heimerdinger deck. And it looks like it will come down, preserving the life total as there is no life gain out of Piltover and Zon / Noxus. It will be a pass over to Smileguy. Going to get down this Omen Hawk. Would have liked to see that on turn 1 instead, but nothing to... Thermogenic Beam almost certainly not going to be used on an Omen Hawk. It was understandable on the Blade Scout, but this Hawk will get in for the 1 damage. And a Zed possibly coming down on turn 3 with Recall back up in order to save that from a Thermogenic Beam or a Culling Strike. A lot of removal in the hand of Jinbae here, though. And a second Recall coming for Smileguy. This looking a little slow here. And just a pass over from Jinbae, not wanting to play this Arachnid. And will instead find a Zed on the other side of the board. Couple of options for removal. 2 Culling Strike and a 5-mana Thermogenic Beam, although either one almost certainly going to get the Recall out of the hand here, and unfortunately not going to count towards the Ezreal target count, as the target is no longer there when the spell resolves, and Ezreal, a fickle man, needs to see these spells fully resolve in order to tick up towards his evolution. So it's going to be a pass over from Jinbae. Smileguy probably just going to play this Zed again. Could go for the buffed up Green Glade duo here. Unfortunately, not having the mana to play anything else with that. Could jam the Kinku Lifeblade, but Zed seeming like the safest play. Perhaps the Green Glade duo, as it still does give him a Recall. Another Culling Strike probably going to be coming out of Jinbae here, potentially thinking about an Arachnid Sentry, but it is going to be the Culling Strike coming down, which should mean 1 more damage is going to be thrown at Jinbae here. Could be beaten out with this Blade's Edge, but says that's fine. I would like to save this Blade's Edge for a Green Glade duo, not knowing that the one in Smileguy's hand was buffed up by the Omen Hawk, not going to be able to be taken out by that Blade's Edge. And the Heimerdinger coming in at the perfect time on turn 5. A lot of the 3-mana removal is already gone from Jinbae's hand, but not all of it. Gonna get that Heimer down. Not a lot of removal out of these elusive decks for a Heimerdinger. Always feeling relatively safe to just throw it down. Let's just check on the status of Will of Ionia. There are 2 Will of Ionia in the list for Smileguy here. Unfortunately for him, not finding one on the turn that the Heimer comes down, instead going for a Jeweled Protector. The Culling Strike's already coming down. An Elixir of Brilliance. A huge top deck here for Jinbae. Could try and go for this Blade's Edge onto this Omen Hawk. Could go for a Progress Day. A lot of options here to actually swing this back in his favor and start a race where he is probably pretty favored. Might be saving that Blade's Edge for a combination with the Noxian Guillotine. Unbeknownst to him, actually does have a free block onto this Omen Hawk, of course not willing to risk it in the face of something like a Twin Discipline. Just going to take that 6 damage, putting him down to 12, and start throwing out some turrets. The Elixir of Brilliance, refilling the spell mana, unfortunately giving another Scrap Dash Assembly. Not going to be particularly useful in this matchup as elusives do not care about mere 1/1s coming down. Might end up just getting used as built-over discard fodder later on, as there are 2 Rummage and 3 Get Excited in the deck of Jinbae. And a Green Glade Duo coming down as a 3/2. Not going to be able to be Blades Edged singularly. We'll need to throw that in combination with a Noxian Guillotine. Not an unreasonable play. Would get shut down by the deny, unfortunately, so it is just going to be the Progress Day. Getting another Heimerdinger, a Get Excited, and another Noxian Guillotine. And one of the awkward parts of having so many 3-mana spells to play with this Heimerdinger is that Progress Day does upset them a little bit, turning them into 2-mana spells, taking the MK3 turret off the table. And now just Blades Edge and Thermogenic Beam. The only options for Jinbae, going to just pass the turn, not using any of those. And Ezreal top deck, going to be getting a lot of targets down this turn, I feel. Is going to be the Blades Edge onto this Kenku Lifeblade. Now, worth noting that if it gets denied, this Noxian Guillotine does not get the Echo effect where it returns to your hand to be cast again this turn. This MK1 turret is going to upgrade the Heimerdinger, though. As a 3 and 8 have already come down. 12 is the magic number, and Heimerdinger having a brilliant idea, upgrading himself and upgrading all of his turrets here for the rest of the game. That Heimerdinger in hand going to be upgraded as well if this one does perish. And a lot of damage on the side of Jinbae currently through this T-Hex. Unfortunately, can just get blocked out by the Omen Hawk, so we'll need to use some removal on that. Or at least stun it out with an Arachnid Sentry. Probably not something he's going to value doing with it, though. Might just take this attack into the free block on it, and then attack with it again on the next turn. Noxian Guillotine going to come down here onto this Kenku Lifeblade. Deny going to be used. And a consideration from Jinbae, going to let that one go, it seems. Could be using this Thermogenic Beam. There is still a recall on the side of Smileguy if he wants to deny this 3-mana MK3 elusive turret. Will be a 4/2, very threatening to every elusive unit that he plays and will be playing for the rest of the game. So it looks like the recall, a consideration here, is a 4/2 turret is a tall order to deal with. No other damaged units on the side of Smileguy for this Noxian Guillotine to get replayed on, and not enough mana to replay it, so it is just going to be the recall onto the Kenku Lifeblade, denying the turret, and it will just be a Get Excited, discarding this Scrap Dash Assembly onto this Green Glade Duo, going to get an MK2 3/2 Tough turret. And the Progress Day still available for the refuel, just trying to push through as much damage as possible. Will likely hold back this 1/1. And it looks like just the T-Hex going to be the attack. Could swing out with a couple of things, take some bad trades into this Jeweled Protector to try and push through 1 damage. But this Omen Hawk almost certainly going to be the block onto this T-Hex. And it looks like he is just going to swing out, actually. Holding back the Heimerdinger, obviously. Never want to throw that away for nothing, even if you have another one in your hand. That Progress Day going to help him refuel. It looks like the Omen Hawk onto the T-Hex. Unsurprising there. The Jeweled Protector onto the MK2 turret. And then the Green Glade Duo trading with the elusive turret here. And no 3-mana spells left in the hand of Jinbae does mean that these elusives are going to get attacked freely, and by these elusives, I mean the 2/2 Kenku Lifeblade singularly sitting in the hand of Smileguy with this deny backup, and it's looking like the advantage here heavily in the favor of Jinbae, as long as he can find more 3-mana spells like this Noxian Guillotine, for example, going to give him another elusive turret. However, there is a deny still to be played on the side of Smileguy. Probably not going to let that one through. Priority to Jinbae. Could be considering throwing the Ezreal down here, or just going for a progress day. Does know that the Kinku Lifeblade is still in the hand, however 2 is not a lot of damage, to be honest, with no life gain in the Heimerdinger deck here. Does have to be a consideration, but the barrier turret going to be coming down now, a massive 8-2 MK7. Kinku Lifeblade the response. And these 0 mana rummages could actually pay dividends here in a big way, creating some challengers to pull things to the side, pulling this Kinku Lifeblade all the way to the end of the line if he can push through some lethal attacks. And just a pass from Jinbae, going to give the attack over to Smileguy, who is just going to attack with the Kinku Lifeblade, put himself up 10-20, or 20-10 rather. And pass it over to Jinbae, who is going to get to untap with this Heimerdinger yet again. A Shadow Assassin, probably one of the better pickups for Smileguy here, as it is another elusive unit that will get to dig him a little bit deeper. Noxian Guillotine. Not out of the question to see a deny on this one. It is going to be a rather quick deny out of Smileguy, not wanting these MK3 elusive turrets to come down on the side of Smileguy. Says, my only path to victory is to go under you. This T-Hex and this MK7 going to push through a lot of damage. Would like to be able to block one of those out with this Jeweled Protector. Shadow Assassin, the last card for Smileguy, going to get him another one. And it's going to be an Elixir of Iron. Not a great top deck this late in the game, but could protect him from an ill-timed Thermogenic Beam, depending on how the mana lines up for that one. Jinbae, trying to puzzle out exactly how aggressive he wants to go, is going to, looks like, use the Arachnid Sentry onto the Kinku Lifeblade from Smileguy. Say, I don't want that blocking something like my 1-1. I want to be able to attack with this freely. Perhaps even a Rummage or a Chump Wump coming down here. Thermogenic Beam also a consideration, and it is going to go at the Shadow Assassin. This is where the Elixir of Iron is going to come in handy, leaving this alive at 1 health. Still pushing through a 5-2 Fearsome turret. Lethal attacks, a little bit too much to ask for in the face of 20 life and a few units. Not the Overwhelm turret, as this is the barrier one, unfortunately. And a full swing minus the Heimerdinger. Gotta keep the boy safe. He is not done inventing. And a full swing. Hopefully this 1-1 gets blocked just to get it off the board, but it is going to be a trade onto this MK7 as well as a chump block on the T-Hex. And no elusive units on the side of Jinbae at the moment. Could play the Ezreal. Could dig with these Rummages for another 3-mana spell. It's just going to be a trade here. Pushing through 9 damage, evening it out to 11-10. As well as a massive board and card advantage overall for Jinbae. Hard pressed to imagine him losing this one with these Rummages. And the Zed, a pretty good pickup. Not a great pickup, but in all fairness, there is not a lot to be gained here on the side of Smileguy. Not a whole lot that could be used to win the game. A lack of draw power in these elusive decks, and the Progress Day going to come through. Get a Blade's Edge Mystic Shot, and that's actually going to clear out the board here. There's a Mystic Shot onto the Kinku Lifeblade, Blade's Edge onto the Shadow Assassin. Going to shore things up pretty quickly here in favor of Jinbae. This Zed not going to be enough to push through the blocks that are necessary onto this massive board. Another MK7 barrier turret coming out here. Zed coming down, but that is only one blocker in the face of an army. And this should be all she wrote here for game number 1 in our last match of the day in Group B, Jinbae versus Smileguy. This Noxus Piltover deck proving not to be the aggro that everybody thought it would be, as that is what everybody else in this tournament ran, running those combinations. The one lone Noxus Heimerdinger deck coming through and taking game number 1 in a pretty convincing fashion, completely running his opponent out of cards and life points, taking a game 1 win here rather decisively. Here we are getting into game number 2 of Jinbae versus Smileguy. Jinbae clutching out game number 1 with his Piltover and Zon Noxus Heimerdinger control deck, the first control deck of its kind that we've seen here in this tournament, and as this is the last match of the round of 16, the last of its kind that we will see as well. Now switching over to a Fiora Shen deck, and the side of Smileguy also deciding to switch decks, going on to his Rally Mistwraith deck, that is Demacia and Shadow Isle, playing Vanguard Redeemer and Radiant Guardian, actually not playing any rally effects. I was misled, and playing 2 copies of Atrocity to get through some direct damage. Now, you might be looking at Jinbae's hand and wondering what that card is that you don't generally see, and the answer is Mobilize. So, Jinbae taking a rather unique approach to this tried and true Fiora Shen deck, not running the Vanguard Bannerman, going for a high number of Ionia cards. However, he's only running a few spells, 3 Key Guardian, 3 Mobilize, and 2 Will of Ionia. If you are unfamiliar with Mobilize, it reduces the cost of each unit in your hand by 1. So going for these higher curves with things like a Tiana Crown Guard, a Windfarer Hatchling, 3 copies of Cythria the Bold, Jeweled Protectors coming down, almost reminiscent of a elusive deck, and starting off with a rather standard Fiora Shen play in this War Chef and Fiora, going to take out this Elise. Mark of the Isle could come down for the trade, or a Glimpse Beyond to sack it off and draw some cards is going to go for the trade on this Mark of the Isle, getting the Fiora off the board, taking away the support of this War Chef. And a Vanguard Redeemer going to come out and get a card for Smileguy, not running any rally effects in this deck. As I said, I was misled. This is not Rally Mistwraith. This is just Demacia Shadow Isle, with Vanguard Redeemer and Radiant Guardian being the only Demacia cards. And once again, 2 copies of Atrocity, valuing that direct damage over the board-centric rally effects. So an Arachnid Horror going to come down here. Now, what I'm going to be interested to see is when this Mobilize actually comes out of Jinbae. Being extremely unfamiliar with a list like this, and packing 3 copies of it, looks like he is going to play it right now so that he can get down the Laurent Protégé alongside it. Unfortunately, still no blockers for this Arachnid Horror, as everything does only have 2 attack on the side of Jinbae, and Elise potentially coming down from Smileguy. Jinbae is tapped out. Elise would be able to push through at minimum 5 damage here, deciding if he wants to sacrifice this under this War Chef and Laurent Protégé combo, going to be a 3-5 challenger, almost certainly going to be a block onto this Spiderling at least. And it will be the Laurent Protégé, and then eating 8 damage, never mind. Going to rearrange these a little bit, change things around. Might be no blocks here on the side of Jinbae. Will of Ionia going to find a decent amount of value in this matchup based on Hecarim and how he works with the attacks lining up. Now, Smileguy will have the attack on 6, which is why I say that the Will of Ionia will work out here potentially, as playing that on Hecarim the turn that he comes down. Also a Chronicler of Ruin coming into the hand of Smileguy over here. Only running 2 copies of the Rekindler, but with things like the Chronicler of Ruin, makes it a lot easier to reuse those Rekindlers as long as you can find a single copy. And Chronicler getting a bit more value when there are no Hecarims or Elises in the death pool. A pretty good combo with this Vanguard as well, searching up a minion on the revive. Looks like it is going to be a block on the War Chef. Not a lot of actual barrier spells coming out of Jinbae. As I said previously, it is just the Key Guardian, so no reactive barrier spells like the Riposte going to be coming out of him. A Radiant Guardian going to come down for both players here, evening things up. Life total definitely in the advantage of Smileguy, 18 to 10. A second Laurent Protégé picked up. However, there is a Wayfarer Hatchling sitting in Jinbae's hand that he can play on turn 6 here. However, not having the attack token going to make that not a very appealing play. Could instead get down Fiora and Laurent Protégé for the Wayfarer on the next turn. Bank a couple mana instead if he's feeling it. No Hecarim coming down on the side of Smileguy, Definitely unlucky for him. 2 copies of Glimpse Beyond still, as well as a Myth's Wraith that could come down. Chronicler could be used for a couple of things here. Could be used with the Vanguard to search up another unit. Could be used to heal this Radiant Guardian if it does bump into Jinbae's. Of course, will once again proc its ability as it will have died this turn. Chronicler, definitely a card I'm a big fan of in these Shadow Isle decks. It will just be a bounce off of each other, putting Smileguy up to 20 and Jinbae to 14. Can use a Black Spear to finish off the Radiant Guardian after using the Chronicler, if that is what he wants to do. Laurent Protégé going to be coming down for Jinbae, setting himself up really nicely for this hatchling turn. Smileguy debating the Chronicler, is going to go for it, probably considering which unit he wants to play it on, and it will be the Radiant Guardian to heal it back up to a 5/5 tough. That is going to turn on the Black Spear to blast through the Radiant Guardian on the side of Jinbae, make his life total a little more vulnerable, as he will not get the 7 life swing from this hatchling. The Will of Ionia going to come down onto this Radiant Guardian. Smileguy not particularly smiley about that one. A little face in the wake of that, but a Black Spear going to be a more permanent way of dealing with Jinbae's Radiant Guardian. And because the Will of Ionia came down, no Fiora going to come down as well. So a hatchling here. Not going to get a whole lot of value in terms of things that you can kill with these Protégés. Would just be a few aggressive minions in this Chronicler of Ruin, Arachnid Horror, or Vanguard. Is instead just going to be the Shadow Assassin, going to pick up a Shen alongside it. Definitely not going to feel too bad about that. Still, no clean attacks really without this hatchling. Could send a Laurent into the Vanguard Redeemer or the Arachnid Horror, but other than that, any trades will be unfavorable on the side of Jinbae. Shen coming down, going to contest the board a little bit better. However, any deaths will result in this Radiant Guardian coming back down. Sitting at a healthy 20 life total, and considering this Frenzied Skitterer here, going to be played a Vanguard Redeemer, still tradable by one of these Laurent Protégés, and the Guardian will not be able to come down this turn. Looking like he's going to throw his Shen out there with this, inviting Smileguy to get a bit of damage onto the Shen, as this Vanguard formation, or this Bright Steel formation rather, going to come down next turn, auto upgrade the Shen as long as enough units are left on the field, so not caring too much about Shen's life total, as it will have barrier on the off turn where Smileguy gets to attack, as well as on the attack turn for Jinbae. Now, no longer really concerned with the health of his units in the face of this infinite barrier machine, but instead going to decide that going to 1 on the Shen is a little bit too low, will protect that 5 life, and just attacking with the Shadow Assassin and this Laurent Protégé. And one of the Glimpse Beyond's going to be coming down here for Smileguy, needs to fix his hand a little bit, doesn't really care about getting the damage down on this Protégé. Instead, will draw a couple of cards, looking for a Hecarim here, and that's Rekindler, not Hecarim, and another Radiant Guardian. Fortunately, that does mean all of the Wraith Callers from here on out almost certainly going to summon Mist Wraiths, as a single copy of Vanguard Redeemer is the only Demacia card left in Smileguy's deck. But here the Bright Steel formation going to come in huge if something gets played prior to the attacks here. Could be a Mist Wraith. The mana does line up to make this Mist Wraith not a bad play, since it is a fearsome unit, will buff the other Mist Wraith, and nothing on the side of Jinbae can actually block this until the formation comes down. Smileguy, pensively thinking about how this turn is going to play out, is going to go for the Mist Wraith. A pretty clean series of attacks, as the Bright Steel formation should still be 1 turn away, but thanks to the Mobilize earlier, and you can see Smileguy not particularly pleased about that one. and that is going to upgrade the Shen and buff up this Brightsteel Protector. In an earlier commentary video, I was a little confused as to why the Brightsteel Protector became a 15-9, or the Brightsteel Formation rather, became a 15-9 in response to the Shen, and I have figured it out. It is that the card itself has Barrier, and then gives everything Barrier on play, so itself getting 2 instances of Barrier, of course being the most recent thing played, means it is the only thing that will be getting Barrier when the Shen is evolved. Playing a Radiant Guardian, no units having died this turn will just make it a vanilla 5/5. A Key Guardian on this Hatchling, nope, just going to go for the Hatchling. Banking that spell mana for a later date with this Will of Ionia. Atrocity not going to be able to take out much in the wake of this Hatchling. Would take a Radiant Guardian being thrown in order to take out a Laurent Protégé or a Shadow Assassin. Something smaller could be thrown at the Hatchling, of course. And you have to assume Jinbae could push for damage. Almost certainly not going to be the way, though, as blocks declared are not as good as challenged blocks. So going to decide what he wants to eat off of Smileguy's board with these Laurent Protégés. Figuring out where this Shen is going to give the barrier, as he will double up on the barrier that the Brightsteel Formation provides and give something +6 attack. Looks like the Radiant Guardian and the Frenzied Skitterer are going to be the victims of these Laurent Protégés, as Brightsteel Formation will give them barrier and Shen will buff their attacks. And without Hecarim on 6, it's looking like this is going to be it. Few turns too late for him to come down even now. This Atrocity not doing what you really want it to in this matchup. No Commander Ladros in the deck out of Smileguy either. The Atrocity seeming like a weird tech to me, but I am not informed in this regard. Shadow Isle elusive, or Shadow Isle fearsome rather, not exactly my forte when it comes to decks that I play. So Smileguy understanding the deck better than I ever could, going for the Atrocities. Unfortunately, just not going to work out here. Doesn't mean that they will never work out. And a Glimpse Beyond going to come down on this Arachnid Horror. Still 17 damage being pushed through elusively by this Hatchling and Shadow Assassin. Brightsteel Formation and the upgraded Shen showing their absolute power and mainstay within the format here. And now the Hecarim comes down, but going to be too little too late. This Radiant Guardian rather coming down, getting its lifesteal and tough. No room on the board for this Fiora. This Will of Ionia could just put back the Radiant Guardian. A Radiant Guardian of his own if he wants to throw some blockers down in exchange for a higher life total when he attacks with his Brightsteel Formation and Shen. Although I'm pretty sure lethal attacks are what we're going to be going for on the side of Jinbae the next time attacks do come through. As there is no answer to this Brightsteel Formation. A 9/9, just being a very, very powerful minion in the format and against these aggressive decks. If you can get to a turn where it comes down, the Will of Ionia onto the Hecarim, going to put it back in the hand and delay the attack on it. And that is going to be all she wrote here in game number 2 for Smileguy. The Hecarim coming down into the Will of Ionia. At least he gets the compensation Wraithcaller play. As I said earlier, only one Demacia card left in the deck. Would have been incredibly unlucky for that to have whiffed, despite it not really mattering given the face of how things are shaping up here. Key Guardian could come down from Jinbae just to draw a card, but there are not a lot of spells in this deck. As I mentioned earlier, it's only Key Guardian, Mobilize, and the Will of Ionia. So, two very cool decks coming down from Jinbae. Region combinations that we're used to seeing, but very unique twists on them. The Heimerdinger Noxus deck earlier, and now this Mobilize sort of Shen Fiora deck with a very low spell count. No riposts, no single combats, nothing like that. It's all units all day, baby. This Radiant Guardian will at least get a little bit of health. As I said earlier, there are no burst speed barrier spells for the board on the side of Jinbae, so the health total will go up here for Smileguy, but looking like he knows there's just too many value trades on the side of Jinbae for this to actually work out. It's going to be a Bright Steel formation onto this Radiant Guardian, Shen onto a Mist Wraith, and potentially Hatchling onto another Mist Wraith with the Radiant Guardian. However, he can just take the damage. There is lethal in the face of 2 Mark of the Isles, so perhaps going to play it safe and block one of them here, as Smileguy does have the mana for it. And yeah, it's going to be a block lined up. It's probably going to be a Radiant Guardian coming down after that. The trades going through here. One little Mist Wraith getting through. A Radiant Guardian coming down. And that is going to be all she wrote here in game number 1, as this Shen and Brightsteel formation will pump this Shadow Assassin up to an 8/8. Just going to swing out. Of course, there's no Judgment or anything like that from this Demacia deck. 2 challenges. And the Vile Feast not going to be able to actually deal any damage unless he hits one of his own units. So this Shadow Assassin going to be lethal either way, as he is at 7. The Vile Feast, looking at it, could actually kill this Shadow Assassin with the Vile Feast and Atrocity, but it doesn't matter in the face of all the damage from the other units. And that's going to be game number 2. Going to Jinbae, breathing a big sigh of relief there, and moving on to his last deck here, a round of 16. Here in game number 3, with his tournament life on the line, Smileguy has elected to stay with his Demacia Shadow Isle deck, and of course Jinbae swapping to the only deck he has left, his Shadow Isle Freljord. This going to be an Ash Harrowing deck, and as you can see from the Mist Call in his opening hand, this is rather different than the Elise Ash decks that we saw from Group A. Speaking of Elise, and Elise going to come down for Smileguy here. The Mist Call just being read here by Jinbae real quick. Things that are different about this deck as opposed to the ones that we saw earlier from the Group A competitors. No Arachnid Horror, instead going for things like the Chronicler of Ruin and Ethereal Remitter, things that are going to combo off well with this Mist Call, adding as many Ash to the death pool as quickly as possible. No Entreat still is going to have to find the Ash the old-fashioned way, such as an Avarosan Sentry blocking a Spiderling? Could be. Could be. Could be. Depends on the value of the draw, and not going to go for it does make it a little awkward. There are things that it can block in this matchup, such as the Wraith Caller. However, it is not going to be allowed to attack. And the Avarosan Sentry would have drawn the Ash, like I said, but instead choosing not to block with it. Now going to go for the attack with it, wanting that Black Spear mana available to him. Unfortunately, just going to get eaten out by this Glimpse Beyond. A Rimefang Wolf, almost certainly not going to be played here. Feeling pretty committed to this Black Spear. Ooh, and the second Elise going to come down in the form of Crawling Sensation is going to make this Black Spear feel a little bit better, as there is no second Elise going to be coming down from Smileguy. This Black Spear going to get a little bit more value in that there are no more Elises coming down. However, Glimpse Beyond still going to be the response here, drawing a couple of cards. 17, not a bad life total to find yourself at on turn 3. Not a great one either, to be honest. 3 damage, about as much as you would expect a turn 2 fearsome deck to push through. Now here on turn 4, this is generally the Wraith Caller turn. Not finding any Wraith Callers though, but a Frenzied Skitterer with 2 Spiderlings going to get the job done here in terms of damage being pushed. Frenzied Skitterer might even come back down from the side of Jinbae in response, knocking those Spiderlings back down to a 1/1, but it is going to be the Ash instead, choosing to develop that. Can get it down with the Rimefang Wolf next turn in order to start picking off this board, and Brittle Steel, whatever blocks the Ash if it threatens it. No Black Spear in the hand of Smileguy to answer this effectively. This Atrocity going to be very bad in this matchup actually, as the Frostbite effect's particularly useful against a card like that. And it is going to be a block and a Brittle Steel onto this Frenzied Skitterer. As I said earlier, no Black Spear going to be coming out this turn to take out the Ash. So Ash will live into the next turn, a Rhymefang Wolf could come down here, which would dissuade Smileguy from playing anything further. Then it's up to Jinbae to decide if he is fine floating a turn 5 for the Fearsome deck, or if he wants to go on the aggressive regardless. Another Glimpse Beyond coming out of Smileguy here. This Chronicler of Ruin not looking particularly useful at the moment. Definitely not wanting to throw any units down that will just get eaten by this Rhymefang Ash combination. Thinking hard about the Skitterer anyway. Pushing some extra damage onto this Ash on the block, perhaps. But is just going to be the pass. Now it's up to Jinbae. Does he want to go on the aggressive here? And it looks like he does. Going to figure out which Spiderling is going to be targeted by this Ash and pull that one under the Rhymefang Wolf. You would expect, as it will just automatically die. And 2 health on a Rhymefang. Just as good as 2 health on an Ash. Not a whole lot in the Demacia Shadow Isle deck that deals 2 damage. Everything going to be either 1 or 3 here, outside of this Atrocity. It is going to be just a Glimpse Beyond onto this Spider. Draw a few more cards. It is going to turn on the Radiant Guardian. However, getting it down post-combat, very important, as this Ash Rhymefang combination would have just gobbled it up regardless of how tough it was. This followed into a Hecarim turn. Could be a big swing that Smileguy needs here. The Hecarim, of course, pushing through 10 damage. Going to be okay to block with this Ash, as there is a Rekindler and a Mist's Call backed up for Jinbae. Might actually be able to push through an Ash Evolution on the next turn. She is currently at 2 out of 5. And with this Mist's Call Rekindler, followed by a Brittle Steel, for the 2 Ashes coming out, and then that Brittle Steel being the 3rd out of 5, will actually push through a lot of damage here, as the 2 strongest units out of Smileguy will not be able to block, but that is a problem for future turns. In the meantime, Frenzied Skitterer going to come down, reduce the attack of all of the units on the side of Smileguy. However, Hecarim does not care about his own attack power, will just push through and summon the Spectral Riders regardless. A 4/5 Radiant Guardian still going to kill anything put in front of it and not get traded back on. Choosing not to attack with it though. Interesting choice here out of Smileguy, not wanting to attack with the Radiant Guardian. So Hecarim pushing through 9 damage. Jinbae at a pretty low 13 life total will probably have to throw some blocks out here, not wanting to just die to this Atrocity. Harsh Winds is in the list, but not in the hand currently, and this Brittle Steel not going to get the job done against anything that the Atrocity will be throwing to finish off the game. No Mark of the Isle in the hand of Smileguy, no mana to play with it either. Is going to be the Frenzied Skitterer and the Rhymefang Wolf onto the 2 Spectral Riders. A Brittle Steel coming down onto this to save the Rhymefang, as well as tick up the Ash Evolution. And then a Glimpse Beyond onto the Frenzied Skitterer. Does still leave mana for Mist's Call. Another Brittle Steel and a Harrowing. Harrowing actually going to be online next turn, as the 3 banked spell mana will turn into a turn 10, or a 10 mana turn 7 play here. Probably not going to be the play coming out though, as no Ashes have died yet this game, neither have Hecarims. So this Ash Rhymefang could eat this Radiant Guardian here. No life going to be gained out of it from Smileguy. This unit coming down and doing nothing. Protecting the Hecarim though, with her life, which Hecarim thanks her for her service, does not really care though, as the Rekindler is sitting on backup. And this will be a block onto the Ash from the Hecarim. We'll put this Hecarim in Brittle Steel range, as well as add an Ash to the death pool for things like Mist's Call and the Rekindler. However, Smileguy protecting his life total. If he's not going to get life gained from this Radiant Guardian, definitely does not want to go down to 10 and meet Jinbae down there. He's trying to stay high on life. We'll stay at high 15. Unfortunately, the Harrowing Ash deck is known for just blowing you out from 20 life, so the life total being irregardless in the face of this Harrowing if enough ashes can come out, but that is a problem for a later turn. In the meantime, we are going to see how Smileguy chooses to spend the 7 mana he has accumulated. Still no Hecarim in the Death Chamber for this Rekindler to come get back. An Elise could come out of it if he's feeling particularly spicy, but instead it's just going to be a simple Mistwraith. And then the Rekindler from the side of Jinbae, going to bring back this Ash. Mist's Call, of course, could bring back another Ash. Seeing how he will spend the rest of this mana. It will be the Chronicler of Ruin to heal up the Hecarim as well as adding one to the death pool, and that is going to mean Rekindler can get back a Hecarim and swing through for big damage here on Smileguy's next turn. A Harsh Winds off the top could help the survival rate of Jinbae here. However, not actually worried about these Ashes dying as the Harrowing will bring all of them back. Could be fine to just throw them into the Death Chamber here. Just needs to bank 1 spell mana to make this Harrowing come true. That combined with a Brittle Steel could be enough blockers denied on the side of Smileguy to push through this lethal. Hecarim also in the Death Chamber. Currently the strongest minion, or the strongest unit so far, rather, to die this game is the Radiant Guardian. Second is Ash, and third is Hecarim, unless I am misremembering some of the things that have died. So Radiant Guardian, 1 Ash and 1 Hecarim in the Death Chamber currently. It's going to be an evolution onto the Ash to trade onto the Hecarim. And the other one will survive this Mistwraith. Brittle Steel onto the Chronicler of Ruin will also help the Rimefang Wolf survive. And of course, the Rekindler not going to die to a single Spectral Rider is a little more resilient than that. And with 8 mana still in the tank and the Harrowing unspent with 2 Ashes on the board, this could be all she wrote here, as the top deck Crystal Arrow going to come out for Jinbae on this next turn is going to get the Rimefang down. This Harrowing could just be a value Harrowing to eat out the board, as the strongest unit that died this game is now the upgraded Ash. Number 2, of course, being the Radiant Guardian. However, 2 Ashes have died this game. Now 3 Ashes into the Death Chamber will mean that 3 Ashes will be coming off of this Harrowing. The Enchanted Crystal Arrow going to be picked up here by the Glimpse Beyond. Sorry, just trying to figure out exactly how this Harrowing turn is going to work out. I am 99% sure that it will kill Smileguy. Just have to figure out how exactly. Unless this Atrocity can come down and stop one of the Ashes, but almost certainly going to be a Rekindler here. Could be a Wraithcaller instead. Bank the 3 spell mana. Instead going to be an Arachnid Horror, perhaps followed by a Frenzied Skitterer. Nope, going to be followed by the Wraithcaller. Is going to hit a Mistwraith. Up to 3 attack, as it is the second one of the game. No Demacia card on top of the deck here, and it is going to be a second Atrocity. And the Harrowing going to revive 3 Ashes if my math is correct, and then that is actually going to... Let's see, the Enchanted Crystal Arrow will knock out the entire board here, as well as just attacks from the Ash. Atrocity could be used here before the attacks come through to throw a Wraithcaller at one of these Ashes. But the Enchanted Crystal Arrow going to prove to be too much. It would have to be Rekindler into Hecarim. However, if the Enchanted Crystal Arrow does come out, then the Rekindler and Hecarim will get frozen by the Ash. I do not see a way out of this for Smileguy. However, I have been wrong in the past, so I will withhold my judgment until the life points hit 0. Atrocity, the only answer. It looks like the life points are going to hit 0 pretty immediately here for Smileguy. Unfortunately, taking away the target of the enchanted crystal arrow will not stop the other effect of frostbiting everything with 3 or less health, so this atrocity not going to get the job done. Even if it did, that's still 2 attacks coming through from ashes that will frostbite other things on the board. 2 challenger wolves to pull the other 2 to the side. It would still be lethal damage, or no, it would be just short of lethal damage, but that's not how it works. No reason to dwell on that, and it is going to be the atrocity coming out here on this Wraithcaller. Almost certainly going to get thrown at one of the ashes. Just shy of being able to use it to kill Jinbae himself, as he is at 6 life. Atrocity being able to use to target anything. And he is going to throw it at his face. And that is definitely going to be all she wrote here. And Smileguy going home 3-0'd by Jinbae. A respectable lineup over on Jinbae's side. Smileguy not able to cobble together the victories with his aggressive decks. Jinbae playing impeccably and going through for the lethal here. That is a lot of unblockable damage coming in. And Jinbae going to move on with a 3-0 victory over Smileguy, popping off a little bit there in the side. I absolutely love it. There he goes. You deserve it, man. Keep going.